Good evening, race fans, and welcome to coverage of the Esports Racing League Premier Series live tonight from Thunder Valley, Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. I am James Plank, the voice of Podium Esports, alongside Justin Prince, Brian Bauer up in the booth, and it's Bristol, baby, Justin Prince. You could say a lot more. You could also just leave it at that. There's so much that this track offers and so many different places that you can begin when you start talking about this place. Where do you put your focus on when we come to Bristol?
Whenever Bristol comes up on the schedule, regardless of the car, the focus is one thing: trying to survive to the checker flag, because there's so many potential possibilities where you might get involved in trouble or incidents, or where you might get stuck in traffic and have difficulty getting up to the field. The focus essentially is survive to the end and make sure you're in position in the end, James, to come away with a victory at this type of racetrack.
As we take a look at where we are in the world, and you'll see that if you go to the very, very, very northeast corner of Tennessee, right on the border just about with Tennessee and Virginia, you'll find this complex, Bristol Motor Speedway, one of the older short tracks in NASCAR, one of the great famous tracks in NASCAR. So much history here and absolutely nothing else like it in all of NASCAR racing. And plenty of drivers who have made their attempts already in qualifying, and plenty of drivers that we definitely need to talk about. None other than Blake Reynolds, I think, is the one that you have to talk about at the top of the list. Blake coming off a fantastic victory. He snatched one out from underneath Briar LaPrade and Brandon McKissick a week ago at Texas Motor Speedway. What do you think he can do tonight? He's currently at P2 in qualifying, Justin Prince, but the hope would be, if you're that three car to back last week's win up with another.
Yeah, I think he might be one of the contenders actually for tonight, because remember, some of these drivers also compete in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series and have already spent hundreds and hundreds of laps preparing for this racetrack. So that gives the advantage to guys like Reynolds, like Matt Busso, like Jimmy Mullis, like Zach Novak, in terms of preparation to know the limitations of the racetrack and know which lines they can run and how they can try and build up the rubber as the event goes on tonight.
One of those cases where you just have to be smart, I think, about how you survive and smart about how you fight. Jimmy Mullis, of note here, Jimmy Mullis, Brian LaPrade, Alex Bell, all right on top of each other. And Brandon McKissick, too, for that matter. That quartet within 4 points of one another heading into tonight's race at Bristol. So the championship is very, very much in the balance. Still no clear favorite for the title in the spring season just yet.
Yeah, and the races such as tonight, James, are where the championship can be completely defined potentially, because if you get into trouble, if you're any of the championship contenders, especially with a hot racetrack such as this at 118 degrees Fahrenheit, the track temperature, and going up as these cars boom around, you might fall down in the standings. So those competitors are going to be looking to get track position and keep it early, I think.
Track position is going to be the name of the game. That racing line up towards the top will be the name of the game. You see a lot of drivers go towards the middle in qualifying, but when we get to the actual race, Justin Prince, a lot of these drivers will run right up against the wall. Make sure that they get that car painted right up against the black to make sure that there's no room to carry the momentum on the high side, because there's so much speed that you can gain on corner exit here if you play it right.
Yeah, exactly. You can either try and cut the car off the corner to diamond it off in turn 4, or you might be able to go more to the middle line in the exit at turn 2. But don't forget as well, when it comes to fixed setup racing here at Bristol, James, the bottom is possible. It's the better way to save tires. The problem is, if you want short run pace, you need to be up against the wall, as you mentioned. If you want to be fast in the 20 to 30 lap range onward, you try and run the bottom. The problem is, you never know if you're going to get a long enough run for the bottom line to be the preferred line to save your tires tonight.
Makes you wonder if the middle might potentially be the best place to go. It's certainly an option that I think these drivers are going to look at throughout the course of this 100-lap race tonight. But as Brandon McKissick finishes off Q and everybody gets done and dusted with qualifying, we will turn our attention to the starting grid and tell you where your favorite driver is going to roll off from. Matt Busso and Blake Reynolds will begin tonight in P1 and P2. Busa sets a qualifying time of 14.741 seconds to take the top spot. Solis Jr. starts in third, and Zach Novak, the defending NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion, rolls off from fourth. Fifth will be the 87 of Brandon McKissick. Timmy Mullis starts from the sixth position. Seventh will be the 75 of Landon Huffman, son of Robert Huffman, former Goodies Dash Series driver, making his debut in ERL Premier Series competition tonight. Braxton DeWeese rolls off from the 8th spot. Another debutant, Alexander Krumke, starts from the 9th spot. 10th will be Ryan Kendrick.
Anthony Alfredo starts at 11 tonight. He'll be alongside Andrew Ramos. In row number 7 on the grid tonight, it will be Alex Bell deep in the field in 13th alongside Lucas Graham. Alec Chamberlain starts 15th alongside Greg McConey, with Nick Olson, one of the early qualifiers in the session, deep in the field in 17th. Steve Durham starts in 18th. John Midget and Nicholas Hughes round out your top 20, with Austin Craven and Kobe Wells rounding out the qualifiers.
As we take a look at the track facts now, this is Bristol Motor Speedway in Bristol, Tennessee. A 0.533 mile, 0.858 kilometer circuit that opened in 1961. 26 to 30 degrees of banking in the turns. It's progressive and gets higher as you go up the racetrack. 6 to 10 degrees of banking on the straights. It's also progressive there as well. In sim, it is the default day, iRacing Day, May 15, 2020. We're currently running in the afternoon. It's just shy of 4 o'clock local time here. Currently, it's 90 degrees, air temp 117 degrees, track temp, so it's a warm one in Thunder Valley. 55% humidity, winds to the north at 5 miles an hour, so not much that you're going to feel inside this canyon of speed, but a whole lot of action on your way and headed to your screens momentarily as these cars take to the track in race trim for the first time.
And this should be an exciting race today, especially with a lot of talented drivers here. It's going to be important, though, as you talked about, to maintain track position, make sure you get the preferred line, but also make sure you pace yourself, James, because it can take multiple laps to get passes done tonight. So the more patient you are, the more likely you'll be able to try and get positions as this race progresses tonight.
Patience, 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 and patience. Something that we talk about a decent amount in this NASCAR competition with the Esports Racing League Premier Series. Getting tongue twisted here at Bristol, clearly. But I think something that is especially applicable tonight. 100 laps here that you have to tackle at the last great Coliseum, racing the way it ought to be, the world's fastest half mile, the bull ring, the home to jet airplanes and dogfighters in a high school gymnasium. There's so many different adjectives that you can use to describe this place, but we here at Podium Esports are glad to have you on board for tonight's race. Round 7 of the Esports Racing League Premier Series of Bristol is underway, and Matt Busa and Blake Reynolds lead them into turn 1, but Zach Novak already with a really good start to the inside of Reynolds. He will go. Solis will fight Timmy Mullis on the top side, but a strong start for the Richmond Raceway Esports driver.
Yeah, very strong start indeed, and you can already tell that the top line allows you to carry momentum on the exit of the corners. However, if you're able to time it up just like Zach Novak just did, you can just rim ride the apron nearly and make a pass on the bottom side work to try and take advantage of drivers not with momentum.
As all these drivers now immediately find the bottom, looks like Anthony Alfredo will be able to jump around. That might have been Landon Huffman, who did indeed get stuck on the bottom there, and he's got Alex Bell stopped up. Greg McConey is a little bit backed up. Nowhere for Nick Olson to go, but Matt Busa in control of this, and everybody in this race already running the middle lane. Justin Prince, they've already found themselves down towards the bottom of this racetrack, like you said, not like the top side where we've seen so many of these drivers go across racing, not only in the NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, but the NASCAR iRacing Series and all the official fixed races too.
And the reason many drivers dive down to the middle to bottom lines, James, once again, is you burn out the tires more if you run against the wall because you're carrying so much more momentum and speed, and it ends up chewing up your right front so you're tight past 20 laps. It can take a lot of practice, especially with low downforce, mind you, here at Bristol, to try and practice this, but Remember, many of these competitors tonight raced this line, whether it was high downforce or low downforce for the past few years, knowing this was the best line to get around the racetrack.
Because when you come to a place like Bristol, it's so small, and you still had all the horsepower, regardless whether or not you had the downforce. So it doesn't really matter where you're running on the racetrack. It's not like the downforce is going to make the difference. When you're running at a track this small, it's throttle control that changes the game. That's really how you make speed here. Being able to roll into it on corner exit in particular, that's how you make time up. And that's how Zach Novak's been able to keep pace with Matt Busa, and those two have separated themselves from Jimmy Mullis, Blake Reynolds, and Braxton DeWeese by a decent 2 to 3 car lengths.
Hit it right on the head there in terms of you basically have an egg underneath the throttle. If you squish it, you end up cracking the egg or potentially smashing the egg and smashing up your race car. So you have to be patient. Reynolds in trouble behind him.
Blake Reynolds sliding, slipping around. He's going to find a way to get down to the bottom and save it, but not before he gets past on the outside and he gets loose again off the corner. Still can't find a way to control the car, and he was all the way up in the 4th position. He'll slide all the way back to 10th as he nearly gets into Anthony Alfredo.
I was listening into Anthony Alfredo actually in terms of his stream prior to the start of tonight's action. He said, Alfredo, that his car was very loose. Looks like Reynolds is now getting very loose because he's really warmed up the tires because he ended up having contact with, I believe it was Braxton DeWeese, that ended up getting shuffled and out this far deep in the field.
Continuing to slide back is Reynolds. There goes the 57 of Alexander Krumke to the top side. Landon Huffman looking to the outside of Reynolds, who tries to get up there, and Huffman had to check up. Alex Bell will get a good run on the 75 and potentially look to the inside, but Reynolds finally found some space up on that high groove, but not before he dropped about 10 spots.
Yeah, and that's the downside of running on the bottom side here, James. You lose so much momentum off the corners potentially if you're side by side that you end up just having to find your first hole, your first gap, and then hoping you can maintain that. But because of all the trouble that happened with Blake Reynolds, the top 3 have pulled away by more than 2 seconds from how much everyone has held up. Jimmy Mullis, Zach Novak, and Matt Busa were the only drivers not impeded because of the trouble with Reynolds.
Those 3 are the only ones who have snuck away. Meanwhile, Braxton DeWeese is hugging people up. Oh, big trouble there. That's Brandon McKissick who goes down to the inside. Ryan Kendrick slides up the racetrack. Yellow flag is out for the first time as Greg McConey gets into Kendrick, as does Alec Chamberlain in the 98.
Well, there's the quick first caution. Not as quick as some may expected, but that almost seemed like it happened a couple different positions there. Nick Olson ended up getting loose behind McKissick. McKissick snapped off turn 2, and then everyone just got piled up into the middle of turn 3 by the time the caution flag came out. So like a 2-3 pronged incident there, James.
So much that you had to pay attention to there. McConey had nowhere to go, but if you go all the way back to figure out what happened, this was all through the 13 machine and Brandon McKissick in the 87. I couldn't tell if McKissick got some help or just got loose on his own. Looks like he just got loose on his own on corner exit, tried to catch it, went back over to the fence, came down, clipped the 13 machine, went down to the inside. McKissick actually was largely all right once he clipped the 13. The 13 ended up stuck all the way on the high side of the racetrack, and one more car that got caught up in that too. Colby Wells in the 45, didn't see him until the very end, but he tried to go way up to the wall and sort of squeezed himself between the 98 and the 13.
Just taking a look back at things on my end actually here too, James, and to clarify, if you get that loose, there's the chance that someone made you that loose and you were fighting to get back into throttle control. Lucas Cram was the one who actually gave McKissick a shot. It just took the whole entire corner for McKissick to lose the handle in that race car.
So McKissick loses the handle on his machine and ends up in trouble. Meanwhile, everybody else down pit road at a really tight battle that Zach Novak is going to win. He beat Matt Busa. Oh, no, he didn't. It was super tight between the 5 and the 90, but Busa does maintain the lead off of pit road. Then Novak, then Mullis, then Braxton DeWeese, who has been hanging around that 4 spot for a good chunk of the evening so far, especially after Reynolds had his issue, but not a bad run up to this point for the number 8 car.
Yeah, very calm, very quiet run so far. His average pace in the past in those 10 laps prior to the caution flag, about the 15.3s. That's only about a tenth or two off of the race leader, so he's got some pace. He just lost so much time because of what happened with Reynolds. Already one to go though for the restart.
And cars will line up for this restart. It is all Busa, then Novak, Mullis, DeWeese, Schultes, Cram, Alfredo, Reynolds, Krunke, Bell, your top 10, and Anthony Alfredo already up to 7th after starting 11th. Lucas Cram up to 6th after starting 14th. Green flag comes out again on lap 22, and Busa jumps out in front. Then Novak, Mullis racing side by side with Braxton DeWeese. Hard fighting there on the inside line. Jose Schultes also there as well. Trouble a little bit further back, though. One car, or two or three cars stuck towards the back of this field. McConey in trouble again. Looks like he might have been the catalyst for this yellow. We'll see how this panned out. It was actually a little bit further ahead. It was Steve Durham in the 10 who was the first one to go sideways, and it looks like Durham made a little contact with Landon Huffman. He just managed to clip the wall on the restart coming down the front stretch and couldn't quite save it, and eventually ended up locking it down, getting pounded by, I think that might have been Austin Craven in the 30, and then the 16 of Greg McConey. Nowhere for either of those two to go. Same can be said for McKissick, who managed to clip Craven and end up down towards the inside too.
Yeah, and it's so easy to just have a little bit of tire spin or a ball will move you towards the wall here at Bristol and cause so much trouble just like that. Unfortunate though for McKissick in his second incident and as many caution flags. Give credit though to Andrew Ramos, who was at the back end of the field. He dodged all of that and has still kept the 7 machine clean as everyone else stays behind his pace car.
Really good stuff to keep himself up towards the front of the field. And DeWeese was able to clear Mullis too on that restart. We saw DeWeese had the high line here, and on short runs, like you said, that's the speed place. That's the spot you want to be on this racetrack in order to pull a little bit of momentum off of anybody behind you within the first 5 to 10 laps of a run especially. So good stuff there from DeWeese to jump out in front and take third away. He'll be starting on the inside though, incidentally, on this next restart. Mullis will be the one on the outside, so 46 might have the opportunity to get the spot right back. A few events to tell you about across the world of podium esports and iRacing over the course of the next week. First up, Friday night, round 6 of PCA Sim Racing for Series 4 comes from Sebring International Raceway, 8 p.m. Eastern. Actually, I take that back. 7:30 p.m. Eastern. New start time for PCA this Friday night, April 10th, and that'll be over on the iRacing Esports Network on YouTube. Then round 3 of the iRacing IndyCar Challenge from Michigan comes your way this Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Eastern on NBCSN in the United States from Michigan International Speedway. We know how quick that place is. That should be an entertaining race. First race in that series on an oval as well. They've run road courses the first 2 weeks, so we'll see a different side of the IndyCar drivers when they get to Michigan. And then next Tuesday, April 14th, 9 p.m. Eastern on iRacing's Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube, round 5 of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series from Richmond Raceway. That 3/4 of a mile, the oval, the next short track on the schedule after they were in Bristol last week. And I have a feeling we're going to be in for a very entertaining time when we get to Richmond. That'll be Tuesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. So only 6 days from now, JP, as lights get ready to come off the pace car. We'll reset the field for the green flag on lap 28 of 100. Busa, Novak lead the group. Then it's DeWeese, Mullis, and Cran, the top 5. Then Jose Solis Jr., Blake Reynolds, Alex Bell, Anthony Alfredo, and Alexander Kremke, your top 10.
Yeah, and so far, Busa and Novak have looked very consistent. The lap times near identical when we've gotten green flag runs so far. It might be difficult for Novak to try and get a run at this point, but if he can find a way to get to the inside as what we've seen so far, or at least try and take over the right rear quarter panel and take away the top line off an exit, it's Zach Novak's race to lose.
Novak takes off, but Busa takes off better as we go back green flag racing at Bristol. Busa, Novak, DeWeese now, the one stuck on the inside. Mullis with the momentum up top. DeWeese has absolutely nothing he can do. as Mullis just blasted down the back straightaway to get around that 8 car, take over third once again. Therese will slide in line. Jose Solis has gone onto the top side. It's Lucas Graham fighting on the inside of Alex Bell, who's right in the hunt for the points lead too. So watch Bell. We'll see what he can do to get around Solis, because guess who's up there in the points too? Jimmy Mullis in that 46, only 2 cars ahead.
Yeah, lots of drivers with points implications scrapping around this field at this point. But again, 2 Richmond Raceway Esports machines, along with the Williams Esports machine of Matt Busa, just starting to run away and look very consistent. Some of that experience coming in, comparing that to the others, they're struggling a little bit, it looks like, to stick to exactly where they need to go in terms of the apex. And to the inside, here comes Bell.
Bell looking to the inside of Solis, who went wide in 3 and 4. Looks like DeWeese still might be doing a decent job of following the leaders. He's starting to figure out this line a little bit, just sort of sitting behind Jimmy Mullis and watching this group, trying to mimic what they're doing. Shoulders just figured it out too. Everybody's starting to come back down towards the middle, stay away from that wall, but they're all trailing the Matt Busa train, and Williams has had a pretty good week. If you look at what happened to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, Ryan Luza picked up his 2nd win in a row here at Bristol, and now his teammate Matt Busa in the 5 machine may well just be on his way to doing the same. He's had a very strong car here in the opening 35 laps.
And remember, he had a strong car as well at Bristol. He just couldn't get track position much of that night. So he's got good pace here. He's now in good position too, with the fact that everyone's just trying to match lines, save tires, think big picture, and no one's been able to risk a move quite yet. So far, Novak has been the best out of anyone to make a pass on the bottom. Just no one can get a run quite yet to get to the said bottom at this point throughout this entire field, let alone the top of this point.
Well, nobody's making a run, and as you said, nobody's really forcing the issue or even trying to force the issue just yet. They're trying to be patient and survive these next 70 laps, 60 laps or so, as these drivers have a long way to go before we get to the end of tonight's race. As Busa continues to lead. Battle's looking pretty good, though, a little bit further back when you get to Alex Bell and Blake Reynolds. As I showed us, this crew here, this is 5th, 6th, 7th, as Bell starts to run way out top, and Reynolds has come back through the field and gained a little bit of that track position that he lost some 15 laps ago when he and McKissick got into it off of 4, and Reynolds went skating down the front and the back straightaways.
Yeah, and he's one of the quicker cars on the racetrack, too, using that very middle line, very bottom to the middle line, I should rather say. Because remember, it's progressive banking here at Bristol Motor Speedway. And a lot of drivers like to run on the bottom part of the progressive banking, if not the exact middle, to try and get that little ramp off the corner exits. Reynolds is doing that very well to try and close in. The problem is, though, he just hasn't been able to claw in Bell because Bell is trying every line to be the fastest car on the track in front of him.
There goes Bell down to the inside of Shoulders, who was looking but couldn't quite find the momentum off of turn 2. Now here comes Blake Reynolds to the inside of Alex Bell, looking for that 6th position, but still nothing yet. Everybody really trying to find a way to make the bottom work, but it just has not come in quite yet. Justin Prince.
Again, it's easy to catch up to someone at Bristol. It's tough to pass them at Bristol. And we're seeing that perfect example. Now you have to think about an error factor, though. Lap traffic is ahead. Curious to see if anyone tries to use Austin Craven as a pick in these battles here.
Austin Craven down to the inside. If you can roll the top side, keep the momentum up there, you might be able to do something and make use of that in 30, but everybody's gone to the top side to get around him, so instead of being a pit, he's functioned much more like a funnel to get everybody in the top 5 sorted out. Meanwhile, there goes Bell way up to the top again, and this is where you want to keep your eyes for the next maybe 10, 15 laps or so, because this is where the action is in this pack. Right around 5th, 6th, 7th, now 6th and 7th, is Alex Bell struggling to keep up with Jose Solis, who's scooting away to the tune of 0.3 of a second. Now, Blake Reynolds is all over the rear bumper of the 15.
Yeah, and I think Bell might be actually overexerting the tires at this point because of how much he's been trying to push on this track. And Reynolds already sees he needs to get by. That's why he went up to the top. Here comes the run to the inside.
Big move there. Blake Reynolds is going to slide it up in front of Alex Bell. Bell's going to look to the inside and try and carry the momentum and pull the crossover off. He's going to drive it in deep. Is it going to be enough? It won't. He'll have to get off the gas, and Blake Reynolds will take over that 6th spot. So took Reynolds a little bit of time, but he finally did make the pass work. Here comes Lucas Cram in the 44, who's got multiple wins in the ERL Sportsman division that runs on Monday nights, but Cram's got that 44 machine sideways all over this racetrack.
Yeah, he's really trying to fight the race car on the bottom side, and he's been very hard on the brakes on corner entry. That's where he got some of the front end damage, remember, for some of the shots that brought out some caution flags. But Bell's got a problem, though. He smacked the wall down the straightaway a couple laps ago. He's looking like he's tight, just visually, just looking at the car, and drivers are now going to take advantage of that in the apexes if he doesn't be careful here.
As they work their way across the line to complete 50 laps and go halfway in this race. And now that we've seen the cross flags, it's time to bring you tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break, which as always is brought to you by iRacing, the world's leading online racing simulation. Developed for the beginning as a centralized racing and competition service, iRacing organizes, hosts, and officiates races on virtual tracks all around the world. iRacing is home to a wide variety of officially sanctioned series, with racing for the Australian Supercar, the Cars Tour, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Matt Puso leads this race with 52 laps complete over Zach Novak and Jimmy Mullis. Braxton DeWeese and Jose Solis Jr. round out the top 5. And it's Blake Reynolds, Alex Bell, Lucas Cram, Alexander Kranke, and Anthony Alfredo running 6th to 10th.
Lennon Huffman is also in the train of the hurt train, so to speak, as Bell has pounded the wall a couple times. That train, Midget is in 12th behind them. Nick Olson's in 13th. McKissick is now up to 14th in front of Chamberlain. That's after Ramos a couple laps ago hit the wall to fall to 16th. In 17th is Hughes. He'll swap spots with the 7, with Ryan Kendrick rounding out the top 20.
Austin Craven and Steve Durham make up the rest of the field, and that will conclude tonight's iRacing Midway Race Break. With over 80,000 drivers on the service and over 80 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is the original esports racing game. For more information, you can visit iRacing.com today. Matt Pusa now beginning to gap Jimmy Mullis and Zach Novak. Those two have fallen to almost a second back of the 5 machine. Braxton DeWeese, though, is just hanging on to that 4th spot because Blake Reynolds is continuing to charge back through this field.
Yeah, Reynolds is really trying to find his way back up to as high as he can get here to make it an all-top 40 NASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series grouping. The problem is, though, DeWeese has been able to hold on very well, and he's using the top line to defend. Problem is, DeWeese, the more he runs up there to try and defend, the more he'll heat up the right front tire, the more he'll have to get off the gas in the apex, and we've already seen how much Reynolds is trying to send it for the slide job at the bottom.
Reynolds really trying to push it hard. He's got a good run to the inside. He may have the opportunity to go here. Oh, he used Austin Craven as a pick, and Braxton DeWeese had nowhere to go. And so now Jose Solis is down to the inside, and they nearly went 3 wide for just a moment, but DeWeese slides back to 6th. Austin Craven was stuck up on that top side, and there was absolutely nothing that DeWeese could have done to hang on to the position.
Well, that's a little help from your pro teams, one of your main pro teams director, so to speak. Reynolds now took advantage of that perfectly, though. 0.2 of a second gain minimum, and now all of a sudden he's up to 4th position. He might be in a good position if they get a caution flag. However, there's still about 40-plus laps to go on this racetrack.
What do we call that, Justin Prince? Co-opetition, I suppose?
Yes, indeed. That's the perfect phrase.
Something like that, as Boost has still got the lead. Mullis has started to chop it down a little bit, though. It's now down to 5/10, so looks like that number 46 Toyota might be beginning to hit the go button. Zach Novak is just a little bit back of Mullis as well, and then Reynolds has jumped up into 4th ahead of Solis and DeWeese, who lead the non-Coke Series regulars, and then a tremendous amount of competition around Lucas Graham and Alex Bell as Graham ducks to the inside. Here comes Alex Bell back to the inside. Landon Huffman and Anthony Alfredo also there fighting for positions, and they're swapping spots just about every corner. This is 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th you're watching.
And at this point, if you're all the other cars, you're probably thinking, guys, come on. We're losing 3-4 tenths a lap from this fighting alone. That's how much they're losing from all the back and forth, but finally, it looks like Alfredo saying, You stay on the top, my friend. Lucas Cram now has the chance to pull away from all this.
Lucas Cram beginning to really take control of the top side and get away. Anthony Alfredo now stuck to the inside of his SimSeeds teammate Landon Huffman, who continues to roll all the momentum up there. John Midget in the one machine almost got side by side with Anthony Alfredo, and then Alfredo just crept that right rear quarter panel up enough to get in the way and make sure that Midget couldn't get alongside him. So now it's Alfredo trailing Bell and trailing Huffman, who's managed to get around both the 21 and the 15 to take over 8th, and Huffman now beginning to pressure Lucas Cram as Alfredo looks to the inside of Bell.
Yeah, and the tires are definitely shot on Bell. In fact, a bit of a shot that time from Alfredo. And it looks like Anthony Alfredo showing a little tiny bit of frustration, maybe. And you can tell just how much Bell's having to get off the gas. That's also definitely a factor in with how difficult it's been for these drivers to even run around him in this conga line.
Everybody just really trying to piece their way through. Landon Huffman, though, has found some mid-run speed. All of a sudden, look at him, the 75 now, looking to the inside of Lucas Cram, who's been one of the best drivers in the Sportsman division. Cram currently running in 7th, but maybe not for long. Here comes Huffman to the inside.
Yeah, Huffman had pretty good performance in Saturday Night Thunder, and Cram is a little bit hurt, remember, with how much he's hit on that front bumper. Huffman, though, has got damage on the right front fender. Looks like Huffman might be able to get the spot here as long as he can try and clear in 1 and 2. That's where he's stronger than the 44.
Made it tight, made it work. There goes Landon Huffman up to P7 as we approach 25 laps to go. Anthony Alfredo still trying to work over Alex Bell. They can't find a way around the 15 just yet. Those two running nose to tail and still trying to figure out who's going to actually take advantage of the situation to jump ahead of one of the other. And maybe, oh, big hit though for Alex Bell into the fence, and Alfredo, I think, checked up just to make sure that he didn't run into the 15, but it was a big shot and another big shot there for Alex Bell as John Midget was able to clear Alfredo up high.
Yeah, Bell's really tight at this point if he's smacking the wall that hard, and I don't think the car's going to be able to take too many hits like that, to say the very least. So Bell's got an absolute problem here, especially since John Midget's gaining quickly. And mind you, the leaders are about to reach that grouping since they've already lapped their way up to the midpoint of the field.
Leaders are beginning to approach this group here. A little bit of lap traffic from Matt Busha, but Zach Novak has cleared Jimmy Mullis and is starting to put the moves on Matt Busha. He's now making a charge late in this race. He had a good run at Bristol, finished top 5 at the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series last week, and is continuing that momentum with another pretty strong run here at Bristol. And all of a sudden, he's gone way up high, might burn the tires off, but he is coming. It's down to 0.4 of a second, and that's as close as anybody's been to Matt Busha since the restart.
I'm thinking right now, Zach Novak might have moved up to that line, though, knowing, again, you have faster speed if you run that line than diamond it off the corner. He's been saving for a good 30, 40, 50-plus laps on that bottom line. So he's trying to see if that's going to be able to work to try and make a move on Busa, because you can't repeat the same thing over and over and expect different results over and over again, especially in racing. Novak's already closed up about 1/10 of a second with the different line.
That is quite literally Einstein's definition of insanity, as Busa got a little loose off of the corner, and Blake Reynolds beginning to make a charge too. He's now only a second back of Jimmy Mullis, who continues to slide back. I wonder if the tires are beginning to go on that 46, but Busa incidentally has moved up high to match Zach Novak's line and take it away from him. So now that Novak is drawn a little bit more even with the 5 machine, how much more defensive will Busa get in these final 20 laps?
You're definitely looking at your mirror first off if you've got a driver such as Novak coming up behind you and fairly quickly to try and see what line he's going to be running. You don't want to give him your preferred line, though, because if Novak takes that away, Busa might lose the lead just like that. You also have to be careful, though, with the traffic in front, because there are at least 7 cars within range of being lapped in the next 10-15 circuits, and that's going to be a potential factor. There was a couple times throughout the week and various different events across the iRacing service where we both see trouble in front ended up shuffling how the leaders cycled out on the racetrack. So Busa's got to play this careful and has to make sure he gets through cleanly while making sure he maintains looking at that back mirror to see where Novak's getting the most momentum.
Tons of lap traffic in the way as well. Lucas Cram now holding off John Midget a little bit further back. That one car all over the rear bumper of the 44. This is for 8th and 9th as they work their way through 1 and 2. And as we approach 15 laps to go, these two approach the same lap traffic that Busa and company hit a few laps prior.
Yep, absolutely. So this is going to be interesting. They are going to see McKissick on a different tire cycle. Had to come down a couple times for damage, but everybody else is on the same set of tires. The pace difference, though, has been massive. About 2 to 3 tenths a second from the leaders compared to the drivers who are about to get lapped.
A very, very, very big difference in pace as they continue to work the high line at Bristol, and since Matt Busa moved up there, Zach Novak has not drawn any closer. Jimmy Mullis has slid further back. Blake Reynolds has almost managed to get to the 46, so we may well have a battle with the Coke cars. It's the Coke machine versus the Coke energy machine that may end up fighting for P3 here.
Oh, and Bell's getting scary. He just smacked the wall, nearly hit Busa in the entrance of turn 3. I think Bell may have broken the suspension now because he's finally given up the ghost and given up the top.
He gives up the top. Here comes Anthony Alfredo ahead of Alex Bell. So certainly not something you want to see if you're the 15, especially when the driver who is ahead of you in the point standings is also about to lap you. There goes Jimmy Mullis. Those two first and third in points entering tonight as Busa's got 10 laps to go to victory at Bristol.
Yeah, this has just not been Bell's night to say the very least, but here comes Reynolds. It looks like he's one of the quickest cars on the racetrack because Mullis has fallen off at this point.
Mullis down to a 16.4. Reynolds now with the big move to the inside. Is he going to get up there? They're going to make contact. Jimmy Mullis hard into the fence in the middle of 3 and 4 as Blake Reynolds used the muscle to get around him. And I don't know if Reynolds was trying to door Mullis, but in either case, he managed to succeed. So Mullis slides back to 5th, and Reynolds will carry on to try and run down Zach Novak, who's about a second, or actually 2.5 seconds ahead, and is still trying to run down Busa, but to no avail. Busa in these last few laps has strung it out to a 1.1 second lead.
Yeah, Busa's just been on cruise control, and this traffic has absolutely helped and gone right his way. He's been able to pick his lines, get by the drivers quickly. They've been giving him space. There hasn't been anyone that's been holding him up with side-by-side battles. It's just been picture-perfect traffic management today for Matt Busa coming to 5 to go.
Really good stuff for Matt Busa as we begin to wind down today's race. Braxton DeWeese and Landon Huffman, the other really good battle on track. As DeWeese has the 6th spot, Huffman is trying to knife his way through the lap traffic to catch up to DeWeese, maybe have a shot at getting it back before the end of this thing.
Yeah, and just take a look at how hard he's sending on corner entries. He's trying to send it and lick the stamp on top of that and send that as well by forgetting to send the stamp in the first place. That's how hard he's trying to push. Let's put it that way. Hey, I don't know if there's enough time, though.
Big question you have to ask yourself is Matt Busa now already within 2.5 laps. It's only 2 laps left for Busa to claim his first victory in the ERL Premier Series of 2020.
Yeah, Busa's just been in control all race. Again, he showed great speed in preparation for the Coca-Cola Series race. He's shown great speed here. Started on the post, led just about every single lap coming to the white.
White flag for Matt Busa. Zach Novak about 1.5 seconds behind. Blake Reynolds in the 3rd spot. It won't matter, though, as Reynolds went all the way up to the top side and straight up leaned on the wall to try and get to Zach Novak, but to no avail as Matt Busa comes across the line to win round 7. The Esports Racing League Premier Series from Bristol Motor Speedway over Zach Novak and Blake Reynolds as some of these hard-fought battles finish up at the end, and DeWeese was able to beat out Huffman too. Everybody all over the place as Busa claims his first victory of 2020.
Yeah, just absolute domination for Busa. Every single lap going his direction there.